Everybody. Hey, Sheets, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm just double checking everything from earlier, and I don't have a whole lot of different takes than I did earlier so far. And one guy who I would include in your player pools tonight that maybe wasn't on what I wasn't talking about earlier. You have the really chalky Olenek, and I don't mind even if you're gonna play him, but I think you're gonna get really low ownership on Isaiah Hartenstein, and I just think that's an interesting pivot. Um, at basically the same price. I know it's a different, and you have to use up a center spot, which is valuable today. But I do like Hartenstein tonight, and I want to keep playing him. I think he's got a massive ceiling every time, especially in a potential blowout game against Orlando, as well as the fact that they play multiple bigs. So the foul trouble for Robinson could be more of an issue. So I just want to add. I would add Hartenstein to your pool if you're playing multiple lineups tonight. It's one thing I wanted to touch on that I forgot to cover earlier. Other than that, I think that everything's basically the same as of right now. We still need the starting lineups to come out, and there's a few questionables and stuff out there, but the biggest one is probably the biggest thing that happened is probably that we don't have probably not Scotty Barnes tonight. So I think that it's interesting to take a shot on any one of the Anunoby, Siakam, Van Vliet guys. I don't know which one I would prefer the most. I think if I had to pick one, it would probably Siakam. But I don't mind Anunoby also. That's the one other thing that I want to throw in, and we're just getting in a little bit of that. That's not basketball news, but that was the one thing I wanted to start off with was just to there's a lot of pivots off of some really chalky guys today, and I think Hartenstein's a really good one. And I think the Olenek thing has a wide range of outcomes. I do think I would be just below the field on Olenek if I was playing tonight, but I think that it's an interesting guy to try to fade. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But what are you doing tonight, Sheets? What are your lineups looking like? And what have you got? If there's anything different from earlier, are you doing any game stacking? Is there a game you're specifically targeting? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so first of all, a couple of guys that I didn't bring up earlier who I don't know whether they showed up earlier, I just forgot, or they're just showing up now, is Anthony Simons is showing up as a decent play. It's kind of weird that not weird. I mean, it's what happens when you develop. You know what I mean? Like I remember taking shots on him at 3K. Like it seems like yesterday, right?
Right.
But he's looking like kind of a decent low owned play who doesn't project as well as some other guys, but
Mhm.
is half the ownership. I think he's kind of legitimate.
Mhm.
Um, the other guy who's showing up, who you kind of touched on, again, it's not he doesn't show up as well as the others, but he's going to be really low owned. Is the guy you mentioned, Isaiah Hartenstein?
Mhm.
Um, and the other one who also is showing up a little better, and is a guy I like to play, and you said you didn't mind him too much earlier, was Nurkic.
Yeah.
Um, so those are guys that are picking it up, and I don't know what to do with guys like Olenek. Like it's
Mhm.
I
Wait.
feel as though you're supposed to fade it. I just
Right.
do. Um, the other guys I don't. Again, these are just like basketball. Just guys I just don't really like playing. I don't really like playing Tyrese Maxey. Um, I don't think I'm going to play him. I don't know if I'm going to get to Josh Hart. I mean, I currently am, but I don't know. One guy I'm getting, I guess not that much. I didn't even think too much about this game, but I'm getting a couple of Marcus Smart lineups. I guess maybe
Mhm.
just they fit. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't sound like such a great play, but it's the same price as Josh Hart. Um, so that's something, I guess. But
Mhm.
I don't even know if Marcus Smart's going to be particularly low owned either. Yeah, I have him at like 12% or something like that. He's got to be
Mhm.
lower owned than Josh Hart. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Josh Hart's gonna be real
yeah, so
popular.
that's something. And then like the Bam play, I'm willing to give him a break. I'm willing to give his start of the season a break. I'm trusting of his overall talent level and 35 minutes a game. I think
Mhm.
that and DFS players are not dumb. It's not like, oh my god, after 3 games you're gonna get like he's gonna be like 2% owned. It doesn't work that way. Right? It's like,
Mhm. Mhm.
so it's not gonna be particularly earth shattering. But I was just saying that I don't have a problem with it. Uh, Vassell is. probably, at least right now, my highest owned guy.
Mhm.
Just kind of cheap given his role, I guess, right now. I don't know, but
Yeah.
is it? I mean, am I just saying that? Am I just like
No,
just looking at these
no, it is.
projections?
I
You
mean,
know, like,
I mean, he's had their highest usage for their team for every game so far this season. Had a terrible shooting night the first night of the season when he was 315. But even if he's just adequate from the floor, I think that he's a pretty solid play. He's the one guy who I feel the most safest about minutes. And it is more of a cashy type of play, but if people are going to all play he and Hart, together to start with, I certainly think these other options are worth looking into. For me, I would go back to the main thing that I said earlier is that anytime you can get the guy with the highest ceiling on the slate and the highest floor, and he's too cheap, I just would be way overweight on Jokic. I just don't understand why Jokic is not more popular than he is tonight. So I like the Garuba play too. I like the idea of starting with Jokic and Garuba as your two centers. But again, I want to mix in. I would mix in some Hartenstein. We talked a little bit earlier about Jalen Smith, and I talked a little bit in Discord with some people about it, as well as potentially Isaiah Jackson is another one that you can use at power forward also, that I think is an interesting play at 4,500. He's put up 25 and 29 his last two games, but you got him starting now, and you got no Terry Taylor in the lineup tonight. So I do think that Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson are being a little bit overlooked, and you can use them both in the forward spots as a pivot off of the very chalky Olynyk, who we know has a wide range of outcomes, and even his role is he's one of those guys. He might play 15 minutes tonight. He might play 35. You really, really hard to know with Utah early in the season, who's a team that's supposed to be tanking and is undefeated right now and one of the highest power ranked teams in the NBA. So it's kind of strange, but I just think that the chalk for the most part today is a little suspect. And sure, most of these guys are probably going to get there. I feel better about Vassell. I feel pretty good about James Harden because I think the numbers will be there no matter what. I like Garuba in general. Maybe it's because I'm a little biased because I actually like him as a player. I would probably be below the field. I like the Jalen Green or Kevin Porter Jr., but I think that I would probably play Kevin Porter Jr. at lower ownership than Jalen Green, just because of there's a pretty decent ownership gap between the two of them, and I like both of them in a very similar way.
So I'll tell you a guy who you told me earlier was getting all his projection love, and not that we didn't know why, but what was surprising and he's continuing to get it is Franz Wagner.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm showing even like an aggregate projection of like 32 points at 6K. I mean, you don't get that too often, and he fits builds too. I mean, the other thing I'm going to reiterate that I think Cole Anthony's a good play. What's interesting is that I'm getting to him anyway, sort of, and you kind of led me into that direction too. You're like, listen, he's probably going to project better than you think, and with the absence of Jalen Suggs, that makes a lot of sense, So
yeah,
it's not just some random Eric is like fanboy play. You know what I mean? Like it's
right.
There is actually some now okay. So here's another guy I forgot to look more into. I didn't look at any other content, as far as like other people's recommendations and stuff. Has anybody? Well, you have been have people been talking about the Nicholas Claxton at all?
So I haven't heard much about the Claxton thing, but I think that's just yet another one of these plays that we can throw into the mix. I don't think he's going to project well enough to where anybody's really going to play him. Okay. So I like him a little bit less than I do some of the other guys, but I think there is definitely a ceiling there, and they're definitely using him more. It's a great matchup. And I would try to use so if I was going to play, Claxton, I would, if I was going to, I like I like that game in general. And you have Aldama, who I already like. You have Bane, who I like a little bit, and then Ja, who I think is an interesting spend up if you're not playing Jokic, and you could possibly get both of them in. But if you want to go after that game, especially if you're going to play it anyway, and you're going to play guys like, let's say you played Simmons, Bane, Aldama, then I would throw in a Claxton or something like that. And I think that's actually a pretty good way to get a little stack of guys that isn't going to be as a combo very high owned, even though the other three players individually should have pretty decent ownership.
Right.
So, and let's take a quick minute to say what's up to the guys in chat. Nick, it's great to have Nick Nelson back. And then we've got K9 Bronco in here again, which is great. Adam Perry in here, that's great. I like Adam Perry's question right off the bat about the Boucher thing. So they did sign Boucher to a contract in the offseason that certainly makes it so he's, you feel a little better about playing him than maybe we used to. I don't know whether he'll start or not. My guess is Precious will probably start, but I never have a problem with playing Boucher. I don't like this matchup particularly. And I like the other guys we mentioned a little bit better than I like Boucher. But of course, we know with Boucher, there's always a ceiling. There really is. So, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know why Koloko is not suspended for this game, at least not that I've heard of. They got into that pretty good brawl it was last time these two teams played. It was, I guess I don't know what they ended up doing suspension wise. They must have suspended Caleb Martin, not him. But I think that if Koloko is out, that would make me a little bit more interested in Boucher, because Koloko is going to get some minutes, and if he's not going to, I don't know, it just makes me a little more interested. But again, Boucher is not my favorite there, but we know he can put up a big number. And again, it's not a good matchup, but I'm always a sucker for Boucher, so I don't have a problem with it. I just prefer the other guys we talked about already to him. But I like the idea of trying to stack and try to find the right game tonight. I think that you've got some really good options with Brooklyn and Memphis. I think that Philadelphia, Indiana, even though that game could easily be a blowout, Philly is obviously 0-3 in general and 0-3 against the spread. I don't see any reason why, we have to assume that Philly has got it all figured out just because they're playing Indiana. I know Indiana's look bad. And if you're going to play Indiana, you should consider like a little bit of Aaron Nesmith in there as a potential value guy. I just think there's a lot of plays like that are just getting completely overlooked. That these guys are gonna have opportunities, and that's really all you can ask for when you get into that 3K range. It allows you to pay for guys like Jokic and Ja in the same lineups. And just they have Duarte off the bench now as projected anyway. And if that's really the case, I would take some shots on Aaron Nesmith. He was also closed some close games for them. He hasn't had the real big minutes game yet, but Terry Taylor's out. And I think that those minutes will shuffle some way. So I have interest in, if I was playing, let's say I was playing 10 lineups tonight, I'd probably have Jalen Smith in 2 or 3 of them, Isaiah Jackson in 2 or 3 of them. I'd have Aaron Nesmith probably in 1 of them. But I would be trying to get different pieces all over the place in this Indiana game. And I think there's an outside chance that Batatse may start, even though Jackson's projected to start. I'm curious to see what they do against Embiid. And I don't think I'd want to mix Batatse in if he's not starting, but I don't know. I think it's Indiana is a really tough team to figure out, but every night you're going to have one of these bigs, especially in a game against Embiid when they're going to have to match up. I expect one of these guys to 6X every night. It's just hard to know which one. So I'm trying to figure that piece out right now. I like the question, Podol or Nurkic. For me, it's Nurkic from Hingo. I like the Nurkic play. I think that it's not going to be particularly high owned against Jokic. I think you play Jokic and Nurkic in the same lineup potentially. That center position is strong. I do think double center is the way to go, Sheets. Are you finding that double centers is where you're at?
I'm still actually building the lineups. I haven't quite analyzed it in that form yet. But I'm really forcing in, by the way, this Claxton play.
I like it,
and we'll just see how it turns out. You know what I mean? I'm not doing 100% or anything like that, but we're gonna take a shot.
Yeah. And I by the way, the Garuba thing, to answer your question from Green Monster, I think Garuba is a totally fine play. So one thing is, I don't understand what the hell Bruno Fernando is doing. I think that was totally fluky opening night. I'm not going to take everybody was into him day 2. I was like, are you guys kidding me? I saw our Discord blowing up about the Bruno Fernando play day 2. And I was like, this is a really, really bad play in my opinion. Garuba is a different thing. They have these young, talented guys. I have no idea why Bruno Fernando even was on their radar as a starter, except for they seem to like to bring Şengün off the bench. But I have interest in Şengün if he plays. And if he doesn't play, Garuba is, I don't want to say the lock, but it's really hard not to play a guy at 3,500 as your only big who they like, who's a young guy who fits in with their young core. Only Tari Eason would take minutes from him. So if Şengün is out, it would just only solidify that Garuba play more. But I think Garuba's a strong play either way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And the question about the thoughts on the Boston Chicago game, my thoughts are I don't want to do anything with it. I think everybody's fine. Levine on FanDuel at 7,200, sure. Fine. Jaylen Brown, fine. Jason Tatum. I'm playing Jason Tatum for 1K less than Jokic, which is probably okay. But I think in the long run, you're better off with Jokic because Jokic can literally put up 80 in this game. I don't think Jason Tatum, without his going completely nuts and scoring 50 real life points, he's not putting up 80, 70 or something like that. So I would lean towards Jokic and Morant as my spend all the way up guys. That's definitely where I'm at. And I do like getting exposure to that Denver Portland game. Also allows you to shift around some things. So maybe, and I know you're not crazy about the Josh Hart thing, but maybe you don't. Maybe you could even think about fading Vassell, or just waiting and playing Hart instead only. Or you could play Vassell along with Hart and get the Jokic-Nurkic matchup. I think that's a really good game to try to target. I still don't believe that Portland's defense is anything special. And you mentioned Anthony Simons. I think there's a lot of pieces of that game, and it allows you to shift things because it starts later than every other game does. And while we don't think there's going to be any news in it, you never know in the NBA these days.
Yeah.
You get Miles Turner going out there opening night and spraining his ankle in warmups. Just things happen, just the way it goes. Precious is in play, but honestly, are you getting to any Precious sheets? I'm not.
No.
I don't see any reason to do that personally. I would rather play Boucher probably than Precious, and it's a terrible matchup. Well, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Precious play. Of course, he could get there. Something could happen, and had a good game against Miami the other day. So maybe you run it. Maybe you take another shot with it. Maybe it is better than I'm giving it credit for. I just personally don't feel in love with it. But he did put up 33 against them the other day. So it just there's a lot of good. There's a real opportunity cost at center, and it's really hard for me to play these guys. Partly why I like Boucher better because he has power forward eligibility. I think Durant is a really good play, especially if you want to play Ja or Bane on the other side. But I still prefer Ja and Jokic as my favorite.
Did you say that Mike Conley was out?
It says Şengün is out now too. I believe he was projected to be. He was doubtful earlier, and looks like they've got him back in now. So maybe that doubtful turned around. I didn't get an actual note on that. Scotty Barnes is out, and it looks like they're saying in chat that Şengün is out, so that just solidifies the Aruba thing to me. It also makes Jalen Green and Kevin Porter much better plays than they were because they run a lot through Şengün. Their offense, he does a lot of stuff for you out there. Right. It's not just going out there and getting rebounds. He's like a really skilled offensive player who can create for himself and others. So with him out, I'd be all over Aruba tonight, and I would probably even mix in some of the. I don't know if I'd go as far as the Tari Eason thing. I do like this kid, but I don't know if they're going to give him enough minutes to where it's going to matter. But I think it does help the rest of that Houston team, the Porter Jr., the Jalen Green, if in fact Şengün is out, which I didn't see the official thing, but I trust our chat that he's out.
Yeah.
It looks like Conley's probably going to be in because they did, when a guy goes from doubtful to projected in the starting lineup, obviously something happened that I must have missed news wise.
Right.
So if Conley's in, I am off of everything on the Jazz except for Olynyk, and even Olynyk, I don't want to play at the crazy chalk. Oh, sorry, and Markkanen. I don't want to play at the crazy chalk. And Vanderbilt's been really good so far, by the way, for what it's worth. And this is a great matchup for him. Maybe if he was a little cheaper on FanDuel, I'd love him over there because this is a guy who's a steal block monster. He had 4 steals each of the last 2 games. You have Houston, who's going to be a heavy turnover team who attacks the rim. There's just a lot of things that Vanderbilt could do. So I even think like playing Vanderbilt instead of Olynyk is just on DraftKings is a really interesting play because I feel more secure about him playing 28 minutes than I do about Olynyk playing 35. And if Olynyk plays 28, I don't think the projections are going to love him nearly as much as they do right now. So, would I make? So we got a question from Eric Johnson. One guy from the 9 p.m. game would you make sure to have one guy from the 9 p.m. game in all your lineups? There is no 9 p.m. game tonight, so I don't know what that is. There's literally no game that starts at 9 p.m. I don't know where it is.
I don't know what his time zone is. I don't know what his time zone.
Well, it can't be any. I mean, I guess it's always just a rule of thumb. We're always going to talk in either Eastern time zone or Pacific time zone. It's and Pacific is always a mistake. I always try to do the Eastern. It's just too hard to try and keep track of everybody's time zones. But yeah, I don't know that I need to make a rule. I love Jokic. I like some plays in that game. I love Jokic. I like Hart. I like the idea of getting multiple guys from that game, and especially Jokic and Hart would be my favorite two plays. I just think Jokic is way too low owned here, and I think that overall, whether it works tonight or not, who knows? Even if it doesn't work, you're not getting killed with having Jokic in your lineup. That just doesn't happen.
No, I mean it has, but not often.
Sure, it happens. 10 times a year in 82 games at the most. Like, when does he not score 50 at least?
Right.
And Brooks is a true game time decision. Which, if Brooks is in, I would lose interest in Ja a little bit, but I still think he's in play. And I would lose interest in Bane a little bit, but I really like the idea of playing Ja if Brooks is out. Yeah. Eric Johnson's in agreement with us. I think that the Jokic, just as long as he's almost ever 10% and he's not 12.5 or 13K, I just think it's the right thing to do to play him. And even with these other guys back, it's not like anything really takes away. Like Jokic, they're just going to run everything through him. He had the completely fluky game against Utah where they lost by 7 million points. It takes something weird like that to happen, some sort of a bizarre blowout. And I don't think this game is going to be a blowout either direction in the Denver-Portland game. You got a little maybe a little revenge for a little revenge narrative for Lillard, but even like we said, Lillard, who's just been absolutely incredible, putting up 41 in each of the last 2 games with a crazy usage rate, still just barely getting over 50. Doesn't feel great,
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying before. I mean, he's you get all those real life points, and it still is not like breaking the slate. Those are tough guys to play.
Yep. I mean, and the question of the Embiid versus Jokic, I don't think it's really a question. I think it's Jokic, and it is an incredible matchup for Embiid. But I just think Jokic is always the answer when those guys are in the same price range. You know what I mean? Usually, last year when we were looking at it, you're talking about Jokic at 12.5 and Embiid at 10.9.
Yeah, they were, right?
Yeah, all year long. Jokic is just going to put up more fantasy numbers, and it is different with Murray and Porter back a little bit. But at the same time, James Harden is more James Harden, has had a lot of control in that offense. And I disagree with one thing, though, that you threw out there, is that I'm going to always take shots on Tyrese Maxey. I just believe the talent level is too high in a fast-paced game like this. Potentially, he could even play some with the second unit and run away with it. I wouldn't play Maxey and Harden in the same lineup, and Harden would be in a good portion of my lineups. But I really like the idea of playing of just being overweight Maxey as long as he's below 6K in general. Maybe it's not the right night, but that's just a general thing. Okay, getting some FanDuel questions in there. I'm gonna try and grab my FanDuel notes here to see what I like that's a little bit different. I don't think you need as much value. I think Olynyk is a little bit easier to play over. I mean, he's 4,800, but at the same time,
power forward eligible over there. Right?
Yeah, he's power forward eligible. That was what I was going to say. Is that's why he's a little better of a play, but he doesn't get the blocks and steals as much as some of these other guys do. Santi Aldama is a priority for me over there. I really like Hartenstein over there too. I think Hartenstein is the guy who could maybe you play all 3 of those guys together. I actually think that's an interesting route. I still want to play Jokic, but if you weren't going to do that and you were going to spend down for Olynyk, Aldama, and Hartenstein. Just fill up the power forward and center spot. Have plenty to spend elsewhere, and I think you're in pretty good shape with that build. I don't think it kills you that often, unless Olynyk has one of those weird games where he picks up 2 fouls and they're better off on the court without him, and then they end up not playing him. But
I will tell you, the guy who I have the most, I guess the biggest bump as far as at least my exposure goes on FanDuel relative to DraftKings is Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting him on DraftKings too. But yeah. I'm getting just a ton on FanDuel.
Yeah.
And who else gets bumped over here? Kyle Lowry, super duper cheap at 5,300. And then I'm getting some sprinkles of these other guys I don't have. I'm getting some sprinkles of Jimmy Butler. You know what I mean? Probably not the greatest play, but I'm getting some of that. And yeah, I'm getting like 15% Hartenstein on FanDuel. Oh, they let you. He's power forward eligible over there as well. I see.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting, and I think that in his game, along with Ben Simmons, that's something to remember, that these guys' games are much better suited to FanDuel scoring, Those you really want to try to get the guys with the high steal assist upside. And I know they're hard to project, and everybody says they're hard to project. I'll take the guys who lead the league in stocks every year, or who are among the league leaders in stocks every year in great matchups to get steals and blocks. And giving yourself you're going to see some games where guys are going to have 6 steals and 4 blocks, or 5 steals and 3 blocks, or something like that. And that's a Ben Simmons type of line where that gets you 16 fantasy points on DraftKings. It gets you 24 on FanDuel. It's a big difference. And that extra point is a really, really a big deal to me. So I think you really should focus on that. And it's like Lillard looks so tempting at 8,800, but at the same time, he's not going to get you steals and blocks, and he's going to turn the ball over. So that's why he's 8,800 over there and 95 on DraftKings. And Eric Johnson's bringing up a point. He's saying he loves Ben Simmons this year. I think for fantasy, Ben Simmons is actually a better play this year, but it's not like he's getting overlooked. That's the problem. I mean, he's projected right now to be is he going to be the second highest owned player or the highest owned player on FanDuel?
Was that possible? Yeah.
That's what he's got. That's what he's at right now. He's projected. I mean, you've got him at 34%. SaberSim has him at 27. And I think that's, and everybody's going to play Embiid over there. He's only 900 cheaper than Jokic. I think I would just take the Jokic at significantly lower ownership. I mean, Jokic is going to be 1/3 the ownership of Embiid. I'll pay the extra 900 for that ownership.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong tonight, that's it. That's all I can do. That's all I got. I like Jay came in with the Jaylen Brown birthday narrative. I kind of like. I don't know if he really reserved himself the last game. I don't buy into that he was saving up for his birthday. Birthday narratives also work both ways, especially on the road. It seems. I know it sounds weird, like it should be the opposite, but city like Chicago, maybe he went out last night. Things like that happen, but I can buy into a little birthday narrative for Jaylen Brown. Anything that gives a guy an extra incentive to take more shots, he'll take them. So I'm on board with that. Everybody's just much easier to get what you want. And I would not be playing, like, I understand if Jimmy Butler goes off, I would just be willing to lose on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I want to pay 25% on Jimmy Butler personally.
Oh, he's going to be that shot. Okay.
He's one. Yeah, he looks like he's really popping over there. Right, so is Franz Wagner. 2 guys who are totally fine plays. I would rather skip it at the ownership that the levels that they're at.
Yeah. I mean,
and I would rather, I would like the same thing with the Embiid thing that I mentioned. I would my natural build, but I mentioned that you could play all the 3 good value guys together. But I think I would try and I would consider like an Aldama, Hartenstein, or an Olynyk, Hartenstein, and Jokic would be my starting front court over there. I think you could also make a really good argument, obviously, for Garuba as well. But you just don't need the value as much for Garuba. His 3,500 on DraftKings is very different than his 41 on FanDuel, where he's near the same price as those guys. Yes, I do. K9 Bronco, I do like Anthony Edwards on FanDuel. I do expect him to be owned. And another guy who, remember, he's going to turn the ball over. He's going to score his points by scoring points. So you're going to lose the 3-point bonus, like you don't have on DraftKings, and you're not going to get a ton of steals and blocks from him in general.
Let me scroll through the questions myself to see if I have any comments what you just said.
Sorry about that. I should have let each of us answer them, but
I haven't even looked at them yet.
Yeah.
At least one guy. So Eric, we may as well talk about this. I know you addressed it a little bit when you said making a rule for the 9 p.m. game or whatever it is. I guess that means the later one, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that in general, when all else is equal, you want to err on the side of playing the late game. Just for no other reason than you have more late swap possibilities if you do that. Also, I just also feel as though that game is. I can't prove this, and this is one of my many projects that I'm never going to do, is to figure out like how owned the late games are relative to their projected ownerships. And the problem is that, and this is one of the things I struggle with when I do my sheets, because remember the way I do it is I take everybody's ownership projections and then I kind of rate them. And I rate them based on accuracy, but it's weird because what happens is if NBA there's a decent amount of late swap in the NBA, and that affects the ownership of the later games. And so you don't really get. First of all, you don't get true ownership. In other words, like some guys are being played because people have to, they have to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like where if a guy if you judge at the beginning of the slate, people would think maybe it was like 10%, but because people are doing shitty, they have to swap to somebody who like looks a little shittier. So those will be kind of those ownership rates will be somewhat inflated. So it's kind of hard to say. But I do feel that it's in general it's better to play the late games. So
I agree with that 100%. Even I would go even further to say even if all things weren't quite equal, if you had a 2 or 3 point differential, I would always play the later guys.
But I would not set a rule like that. I would just that's something that you could kind of even manually do whatever. You could just.
Right. If you like the game, maybe you would set a rule of 2 players if you're going to do anything, or 2 players or more. I think it would have to be more than 2, because if the problem is if anything changes, that one player, it's not if you're playing Jokic as your only player in the late game, there's no value in if anybody's out. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, not only that, but like take it to the extreme, Eric. If you set a rule on that in general, then let's just say the latest game, let's just say it was a totally hopeless game that there was nobody, it was a good play. If you set a rule, you're like just making a bad play. You know what I mean? So you do have to kind of, and this is the thing. One of the things I hate, whatever, is when people say, "Well, everything's slate dependent." Not everything is slate dependent, but something like that is sort of slate dependent. You know what I mean? Like you have to see what these later games are like. I think today it's interesting because I think most of the fantasy goodness is going to come from the later games in general. So you could even again like even give more weight to your Utah, Houston, San Antonio, Minnesota, those games. But the Denver Portland's interesting. It's been a while. I think maybe it's time, Bobby. It's been a while since I've had to sweat worrying about Damian Lillard catching me in a GPP.
Maybe it's tonight's the night.
Maybe tonight's the night. Maybe tonight I get like a big score, and then I just need to like have Lillard get less than 60. And then I gotta worry about. Then I gotta see Lillard do Lillard things, and Lillard doing Lillard things is basically that's when they're like down 9 when he comes in for his last rotation, and he literally has 100% usage rate.
Right. His usage rate is kind of amazing.
Fourth quarter down 9, usage rate for Lillard is pretty freaking insane to watch.
Yeah. The question about, and Eric's question even about how long before the rotations get back to normal, I don't think there's a real answer to that, because every team it's going to be so different depending on which team it is. And everybody's trying to figure out the rotation. But for some teams, especially ones that are contenders like the Clippers, who are really, really deep, they're going to play like 10 or 12 guys because they don't want to, they want to protect Kawhi. They want to protect Paul George. And they want these guys in the playoffs, actually, rather than just having the theory of the Clippers being good every year. So it really depends on team by team what they're going to do, and it's not ever going to really just settle in. You're going to see a lot of players resting on back-to-back days and things like that. It's just going to be that's the new NBA. That's what we just have to deal with. And I'm going to just address a few things because there's a bunch of questions popping in here.
Before you do that,
yeah.
What did you say about Terry Taylor tonight?
He's not starting, so I think he's going to be a little less in the rotation for them. That's my take on it. Well, they're projecting him not to start. Let me put it that way. Unless they changed it. I don't have the official starting lineup, but he's not projecting to start, which he had been.
Okay.
And it makes sense because you'd want a bigger body to match up with Embiid. I just think he kind of doesn't really fit into this game as much as he would have. So I think his minutes are going to be substantially down. One of Isaiah Jackson or Batatse should probably be out there most of the time. And they could try Jalen Smith on Embiid as well, but I don't know how much they're going to have success with that. To answer the question about Jeremy Grant, I have no interest in Jeremy Grant ever, basically. That's my answer to Jeremy Grant. If a bunch of guys are out, fine. I have less than zero interest in Jeremy Grant. If he puts up 40, fine. I could care less. There's plenty of other guys. The other question about Steven Adams, because Steven Adams is a sneaky play, but this is a terrible matchup in a way for him. This is the kind of matchup where Steven Adams tends not to play at all. Like this feels like the 20-minute Steven Adams matchup. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, it's also an incredible matchup for him if he's on the court, because he should have like 20 rebounds in this kind of environment. Just depends on how well they're playing with him in the game. So Sneaky, yes. Do I like it at center position? Probably not. But I don't think it's a terrible play because I think that one of those two things will happen. He's going to end up with like 18 rebounds, or he's not going to end up playing more than 22 minutes. That's what I think. That's what I end up seeing. What I think happens here.
I would like to address. I'll sign off. By the way, if you really wanted to play Jeremy Grant, and you needed one of us at least to sign off, I'll sign off at Jeremy Grant for you. Whoever was asking about it, I don't. I'm not saying it's a great play, but I'll let you. I'll give you permission to play Jeremy Grant if Bobby wanted to go make you feel better.
I mean, I just don't understand how it's a revenge game when they loved having him, but they couldn't afford to pay him in the offseason and they're playing at home.
No, I'm getting to him anyway. That's my whole point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like other plays better, but sure, I guess.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. I mean, it is like, sure, exactly. Exactly. I mean, like, it's not a terrible play, but he's not a whatever. But don't just not, you know what I mean? Like, if you really like him, I'm not going to tell you not to play him.
Yeah. Fournier revenge narrative is not a thing. I'm going to pass on that one.
Who does he play for
now? Fournier? Yeah. He plays for you. He plays for the Knicks.
Oh, I thought that he was like somewhere else now. He's playing the Knicks.
No. Fournier. If Fournier happens to go out and make 6 or 7 threes in a night, so what? Like, it's not. I only want to say
just don't Google him. That's all.
Yeah, I just have no interest in him whatsoever. There'll be a day where I play him on a small slate and I find it going to a team that didn't want him kind of a thing or something. This is not really that even. That isn't even really what happened with Orlando. Like, it's just they didn't have any use for him in the rebuilding future. And for these narratives, they don't just work for everybody blindly. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just pretend every player has it because they don't have the ball. Damian Lillard, if he was slighted by somebody, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Or like there's things, those are like things that I can handle is any extra incentive for a guy. Ja Morant against Golden State when they play later this year. That will be a narrative that I'll go after. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go after just every narrative.
When is Australian Heritage Night for
Ben Simmons? That's right. Ben Simmons kills it on Australian Heritage Night. Lillard Jokic, I think is completely fine. I wouldn't be doing it, but I think it's totally fine. I'm just not that interested in Lillard myself tonight, but I think he's fine. He fits into a bunch of other guys who are expensive, who I like. I prefer Harden, who's putting up higher scores than Lillard without having good nights. So I would rather go there. And please mention sites when you guys are talking, because I'm sometimes I try to answer questions and it's hard to know which site things are going there with. Yep, Denver, Portland 2 hours after. What are some of the value small forwards? Let's see if I have any values. Is there any? I mean, the value at small forward on DraftKings is pretty clearly Vassell and Hart, but they're mid-tier value. I don't think I'm going. Is there? Do you have anybody cheaper than? I certainly don't. I don't have anybody on my list. Josh Richardson would be the reachy play that you would consider, but I don't even feel that excited about that, to be honest with you. I think the natural plays are just Vassell and Hart would be the cheapest guys I'd be using at small forward. Josh Richardson is fine. I just don't want to do it myself personally.
So I have to go in about 20 minutes. Do you want to talk about football?
Yeah, I have to go after Satoon as well too. So let's do that. I mean, this is a really ugly game. So I think you're going to see a lot of people on this Pats this defense. Real quick, I just want to answer the last couple questions about basketball because so many people are asking. So do you mind if we just go one more minute? Would you do Martin with Garuba and Porter? Or is that too much? I don't know which Martin. So specify which Martin. I can answer that question. We can answer that question. I don't know which Martin. Saying KJ Martin and Porter. Which Porter? I just don't understand the question, I guess. N'Keal Harry from Monday Night Football. Yeah, there's a ridiculous narrative you can find. Okay, so there we go. I guess we are caught up, Sheets. Let's jump over to football. And if you guys have basketball, pop it in there. We'll try to answer it before we get out of here.
I would like to know what this freaking quote is about Mac Jones. So this was a quote that said, they haven't announced the starting quarterback, but Mac Jones is expected to play. That said, Reese, whoever that is, suggests the possibility that Zap gets some snaps cannot be dismissed.
Yeah. I
don't know what that means.
I guess what it means for me is I probably wouldn't be playing all that much Mac Jones if you want to take that seriously.
Yeah, because I'm getting literally 100% Mac Jones in my first run.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that's why I'm concerned.
Yeah, because you have tons of money to spend because there is enough value out there, and the Patriots defense is going to be extremely popular. I actually don't mind, by the way, forget the narrative with N'Keal Harry. He's 200. I have no problem playing N'Keal Harry at 200.
Yeah.
Just hoping he gets on the field and catches one touchdown. But I think it's going to be Patriots defense, Nick Folk. That's sort of, I would think would be my starting core. And then I guess you'd say Mac Jones because you have all the money in the world to spend and he's going to put up some fantasy points. But I actually like the idea of playing Justin Fields more and just hoping that the Patriots really do get to him, but he ends up scrambling and ends up running 80 yards in the game and rushing for a touchdown or something like that.
Right.
And then I prefer Ramondre to Mac Jones. Mac Jones is too cheap too. That's also making things a little even harder to fade him. But I would be trying to fade him personally. They just don't need him to win this game. And as we've seen before, at the same time, they may want to show him off. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't have a good feel for the Mac Jones thing. I feel like it feels like chalk that is a little bit overblown today. I don't know why he should be the highest owned player on the slate.
So that was the one question I had, but there was another one. Yeah, I'm getting all this Nick Folk and Patriots defense and all this stuff, but there are some guys I'm getting. I'm getting some Tyquan Thornton. Then there's Dante Pettis from the Bears. Mooney. I'm trying to think of anybody fun I'm getting. Yeah, is Hunter Henry considered fun or no?
I like it.
No, I mean, is that considered an off-the-board play? I mean, we're getting like 1,000,000,000% of him.
He's going to be owned a lot.
Yeah.
20, 25% probably.
That's what I'm saying. Like, who else is on this list here? The rest of the guys are just kind of normal. You know, I've been putting Mooney in the captain some spots. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody pretty cool. How about N'Keal Harry? Should we play him?
I think he's 200. I mean, and you could say, oh, he hasn't done it. So what? It has nothing to do with a narrative or anything. It's just, he's 200. That's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this slate another look here. So that's 8:15, right? Okay.
It's not like it's worked well with the receivers they've already got. So why can't N'Keal Harry get on the field tonight?
Yeah,
they should be doing something different. And for what it's worth, it's a really tough slate to play because I like the kick. I think you could end up leaving like 10K on the table. I really do.
Yeah, sure.
It's so ugly. I would be setting my thing in allowing for that if I was able to play. And by the way, if you don't want to play Hunter Henry, what about Jonnu Smith instead? I don't think he's let's see, where is he at, John?
I'm getting a decent amount of Jonnu Smith actually.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So he had 10% owned. That's pretty low for guys. I kind of like that play a little bit. I also like Khalil Herbert, as I mentioned.
Cole Kmet.
Tyquan Thornton. Cole Kmet. These are those 10 to 20% owned guys that I really like. Aguilar is questionable. I don't understand why no one would play him. I think if he's really that low owned, and because everybody thinks it's going to be Parker, Thornton, and Myers, I probably would take some shots with Aguilar, just because of the ownership, if nothing else. And I don't think money is an issue. This guy was there, he's the only one of these guys, I believe. Oh, I guess Devontae Parker did, but he put up 26 in a game this season at least, and that was with Mac Jones. You notice without Mac Jones, he didn't do anything at all. I don't even know if he played last week though. He just wasn't. They didn't put him on the field even. Maybe with Mac Jones back in there, they have a little bit of a syncing up. He was a better receiver for them last year, but it's hard to get a feel for this slate. I think 5-1. I think Eric's right. I think 5-1 is what people are going to do, and I would suggest going at least 4-2 and playing Justin Fields with either one of the running backs or one of the receivers.
I will tell you what I would like to do.
Okay.
I don't want to play the Patriots defense. That's what I want.
All right.
It's still a freaking defense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
But the ownership projections have them lower than I would have imagined. I thought they were going to be like I thought they would have been the chalk. but because of the value, it's still a defense. You're right. They still probably are going to get like 7 or 8 fantasy points. It's a good point. In terms of captain ownership, is that the guy who I would get off the board with, and by the way, I like the pay, but if you're going to play the Patriots defense sheets, why not play him at captain at 5% ownership though? Because they could put up 20 tonight. That's absolutely on the table. They could be the highest scoring player on the slate as the Patriots defense.
So my highest owned captain right now is Jacoby Myers.
Ooh. Yeah, I think he's going to be pretty up there. What about Devontae Parker as a pivot? That would be my pivot.
There you go. I got a couple with him too. But yeah,
that's what I would probably do. And I would go for, if I had to pick anybody from Chicago, it would be probably Mooney, other than the Justin Fields, which would be the obvious one, I guess. But I really think it's going to be a Ramondre. Like if this was a regular Sunday NFL game and we were just going through what do we think is going to happen, Ramondre Stevenson, the Patriots defense would both look awesome.
Right.
And they're going to be popular, but I don't mind eating a little bit of chalk if I mix in some of these other plays, because all of these receivers are priced similarly enough with the Myers, Parker, Thornton, Aguilar, to where taking the lower owned ones can be very valuable. And I think that's just where I would side on this particular game. And I don't expect there to be a ton of passing. So I would lean on the running games and play Fields because of his running ability. And I would get creative and play some Nat Aguilar in the flex. And I would get creative by playing Devontae Parker as a captain in a few spots because he's going to be so low owned. And, he's put up 10 or more fantasy points 3 out of the last 4. He had a 23 fantasy point game. I know we didn't have Jacoby Myers for that game, but just wanted to throw it out there. That's pretty much all I got for what are all these spam sites doing? Block these guys. There's all these Tinder dating, all this stuff. Block to restream chat. There we go. It's true. Kickers have been great on showdowns lately. Sheets, is that so crazy? What's wrong with playing the kicker as the captain?
Nothing. This is what I'm struggling with. I mean, they've gotten there in the last this year more than any other year, both kickers and defenses. And in the past, they've been just kind of like, guys, well, maybe we could throw in a kicker in the defense. And now it's like people are starting with them in their lineups. It's
right.
Well, in fairness, there have been some real shit matchups. You know what I mean? Like with very little offense. So I don't blame people for doing it, but just the way this score is distributed, you're just not supposed to get there with kickers and defenses too often, I don't think. But I don't know.
I agree with you. But tonight, would a 17 or let's make it a kicker type of thing. So a 19 where they score 1 touchdown and 4 field goals. Is that like 19 to 6 kind of a game? I think that seems very reasonable.
Okay, let's do it another way. So what's the total in this game?
It's 40.
40. So it's what? So I guess it's 20,
39 and a half.
24 to 16, like implied total, something like that.
24, 15 and a half is what I've got.
40, right? So right now it's 40. What people are playing this showdown slate with all the defenses and kickers, they're playing it for 30, right? Like they're saying, it makes sense. Right? They say, well, it's going to be 17-13. It's going to be 17-10. It's going to be 20-13, whatever it is. They're playing it for 30, okay? And because that's their impression. It's a low scoring game. So of course the downside to 30 is somehow more likely than the upside to 50. And I don't think that's the case. I think that if the line is 40, it's just as likely to go to 50 as it is to go to 30. And nobody is playing this slate with a 50 total anywhere near in their head. They're playing it for 40, and they're also playing it for 30, but they're not playing it for 50. So I just feel as though that's the way you're supposed to approach these defensive struggles games, is that you go for the low-owned piece part of it, low-owned part of the variance, and just presume that it's just as likely to be 50 as it is to 30. And I don't know. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to lose.
Well, in general, I love the thinking. I just think it's more likely going to be on the closer to 30 than it is to 50.
But that makes no sense, right?
Right. No, I mean, I hear you. It's just crazy.
But it's the same thing. But listen, it goes the other way too. So like if you have these big games like Kansas City, Buffalo, or whatever, with a 50-point total, people play their slates for 60. You know what I mean?
Right.
They play for 50, they play for 60, but God forbid they played for 40, as if as if
Yeah.
40 is not as likely for 60.
Yeah,
So
no, you're right. You're right. You're right.
and whatever feels most uncomfortable is probably correct. So I'm probably
Yeah.
probably going to do it.
For whatever it's worth, I think New England absolutely hammers them tonight. And I at some point I feel bad. I'd like to see Justin Fields have a chance. I don't think he's going to have any chance tonight, but I think that look, he's going to still put up some fantasy points, and that's all we're really talking about here.
He could be running for his life back there and score 25 fantasy points.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? You break
Yeah,
one.
yeah, he could.
He can get 70 yards rushing.
He could get 100 yards rushing. He totally could. That's completely on the table tonight. That's the one way they're going to be able to for sure move the ball. Everything else feels very, very fishy for them to try to move the ball any other way.
Well, in fairness, also New England, their strength is their pass defense, not necessarily their run defense. So
yeah, I don't agree with Eric here. I don't give up on 21-year-old quarterbacks who have no weapons and a terrible offensive line and say they suck. I just think it's really stupid to do that. I hate people do it all the time in basketball and football. It's really unfair.
Who's he talking about?
Justin Fields.
Okay, so let me ask you. So let me ask you something. So you were giving him on Justin Fields, but all of a sudden Mac Jones is going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, why is Mac Jones? I mean, Justin Fields is. I guarantee you, the Patriots would be more excited if they had Justin Fields than Mac Jones. I really do. I really believe that. And it's bad weather tonight, which is another thing to keep in mind.
Oh, really?
But also, we gotta get rid of our player biases, especially for these 19, 20, 21-year-old guys, especially in the NBA. It gets really, really ridiculous. Everybody talks about how these guys can't produce and these guys can't do anything. And you know what? To some extent, I might have even been guilty of it before the season with Markkanen, going, well, where is the ceiling really? Where is the ceiling? I'm going, he's still a young guy who's finally got a chance to show out. You know what I mean? And you can't give up on these guys too early.
I'll tell you where you get some leverage. Play the Bears defense. How about that?
I'm good with that too. Yeah, he's just got nothing. But they really dealt him a lousy hand. And even in San Francisco with Trey Lance, he's never really gotten a chance to play. And everybody's like, "Oh, Trey Lance sucks." He's got like 3 games under his belt, right. And they also all they ever do is run the ball. Like, right. How is he supposed to be? How are we supposed to know if he's going to be good? And also, in 2 years, Justin Fields might be, not that Kyler Murray is amazing, but he might be what Kyler Murray was last year.
Right.
I just think that the biases are so easy to go with, and it's so easy to talk about it, and then we forget. And then we do it in baseball too. Everybody says, "Oh, these guys can't hit home runs," and all of a sudden we're like, "Why is this guy hitting home runs?" Oh, it's lucky. It's just he's getting lucky. He's getting lucky. Well, he's got the most hard hit balls, and he's got the highest hard hit rate. Why is that? Oh, it's just lucky. It's just fluky. And then you go, well, no, maybe he changed his swing. Maybe the guy got a little bit older and he spent the year in the offseason literally every day in the batting cage with the batting coach and changed. It's just we just got to get rid of our biases a little bit. I'll keep my biases for the old players, though. There's some guys I'm going to just I'll keep my bias against that Carson Wentz sucks in real life. I will never change my mind that Baker doesn't suck in real life until he has an actual season that looks like an actual human quarterback. Also, by the way, Aguilar is officially in. Kendrick Bourne inactive for what it's worth for football.
Kendrick Bourne is usually a showdown legend.
Well, I'm going to poke back at this. Even when someone tries to agree with me, I'm going to poke back about the Wendell Carter giving up on Wendell Carter in Chicago. Why did anybody give up on Wendell Carter in Chicago? He was 20 years old. He was the centerpiece of a trade that got you guys Vucevic. That's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was that bad. Nobody really, like, everybody in basketball didn't think he was as bad as he was. And it's not like he all of a sudden got good in Orlando. He was on a terrible Bulls team that didn't know how to run their offense and that was trying to lose games. And then all of a sudden, when they started to find some pieces that were working without him, they said, okay, well, he becomes expendable. We get Vucevic in here, and that's better. I don't know how much better Vucevic is than Wendell Carter, by the way, but you just can't give up too early.
That was some home run he hit, by the way. Bruce Harper, not Bruce Harper.
Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper.
Yeah, and I like that's what Eric's saying. Oh, Harper's down the drain now, and all this, and as much as Cody Bellinger really looks like he's hitting a real career wall, he's young and he hit the career wall once before and then almost won the MVP the next year. Like it's just really hard to know what people are. You just can't write off these guys when they're so young. I just think it's always a mistake. All right. Well, I'm going to have to run in just a minute. I don't know if there's anything else to cover that I haven't touched on. I'm just going to double check the NBA starting lineup, see who they ended up, in fact, starting for Indiana at center.
Yeah.
They did start Jackson.
Oh, okay.
So I think that Jackson is probably a little better of a play, but more likely to get in foul trouble. That may mean more Batatze minutes. We've seen Batatze can put up big numbers in short minutes even, and maybe Batatze getting to play against the bench unit and Montrezl Harrell, who will give you, as much as he looks fun and it does a lot of fun looking things, he's a guy you want to attack. So I actually don't mind the Batatze play or Jackson. I just think it's a little reachy on this kind of a slate to play Batatze, but if center wasn't so strong, I would certainly have some interest. If he was a small forward eligible, I would definitely play a little bit of him. How about there was one night last year where Terry Taylor was only center eligible on DraftKings and he's only shooting guard eligible on FanDuel. Those are the weirdest ones to me. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody. I'm going to have to run out of here soon. Sheets, good luck tonight. Good luck to all you guys out there. You guys get to win all the money because I can't win any of it in Idaho. By the way, don't take the haircut as a sign of anything that's happened to me in Idaho. It just happens that I happen to keep my hair short. I'm still very much anti-Nazi.
That was a very well. That's good to hear. But you know, it was interesting what you said about Idaho. A lot of states are like that. They're pretty well down the middle. The opposite of down the middle, I guess. Just a lot of liberals and also a lot of hardcore conservatives.
Very weird mix out here.
Not a lot of moderate over there.
Yeah, for real. That's to put it mildly. It's a very, very strange place.
Yeah.
But they all seem to be pretty peaceful with each other and living together in harmony in a way that I don't really understand. Although I don't think I've seen anybody that wasn't white since I've been here.
Well, they live in harmony because everybody lives 700 miles from each other. Anyway,
that's true. That's fair. That's fair. It's beautiful though. Beautiful country. All right, I'm gonna bounce. Good luck tonight, everybody. Appreciate y'all, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning.
Yep, see you tomorrow.